Hi there, I'm Penny Johnson, your facilitator for this workshop. In this video, we're going to walk through the topic for Unit 1, Performance-Based Learning. So before you begin this video, well, actually, before you go any further in this video, I want you to make sure that you've looked at all the material in Unit 1. Review the material that's there so that you can be ready to really understand and engage with performance-based learning, which is our topic. Okay, then when you're ready, you can proceed on. Let's begin. In Unit 1, or in the related to the orientation of the course, you were asked to find your course's outline of instruction, or at least one of your course's outline of instruction. If you haven't done that yet, go ahead, stop the video and take a look, find your outline of instruction, and have it ready, have it handy with you as you watch the rest of this video. In our outline of instruction, here's one of mine that I'm showing you on the screen. We're going to use this information to help us understand performance-based learning. So at the top of the outline of instruction, it's just the course information, and beneath that are listed the course competencies. And let's take a look here. So this is one of mine. Do you see, related to one of yours, do you see a line that says something like, your performance will be successful when? Oh, right. The student's performance-based learning. So we, in our courses, have identified competencies that we want the students to achieve. And what we're going to talk about in this video then is how do we engage our students' performance to demonstrate mastery of that competency, performance-based learning. Okay, so what is performance-based learning? To help us understand this, we're going to compare two instructors, Fran and Tom. Let's get started with Tom. So Tom teaches, they both teach a class called Dental Health Safety. And how does Tom prepare for that course? He chooses his textbook. He makes his course schedule. He uses planned assessments. For example, chapter quizzes, maybe a midterm, maybe a final, using the test bank provided by the publisher, right? We always get those. They're so handy. And then he go ahead and the next step is for him to teach the class, right? He's made a lecture for each chapter with PowerPoints. He's delivered those lectures at each class session, right? So keep that in mind. And I don't know about you if you've ever had an experience like Tom, but I've had an experience like Tom where I was given a class on Friday, and what was I given to prep for the class? The textbook, right? Here it is. Go forth and teach the class. All right, so keep that in mind. Let's talk about Fran. Fran teaches that same class, but how does she prep for that class? Well, the first step is Fran asks herself, how does my course relate to the program? Lots of us on campus teach career programs. I teach in a career program. The students in my classes, I know exactly the career field that they're preparing for. So I know what the big picture is for them. I know what the employers expect of them upon graduation, right? So I have that big picture. Others of us teach students who are transfer students. So then what is the big picture for a transfer student? Well, it's the bachelor's degree, right? We're preparing them in our LAT courses, our liberal arts transfer courses, to move on to the bachelor's degree. So how does my course fit in with that big picture? Even still, others of us will teach kind of these open classes. In addition to my program classes, I have these kind of classes where any student can enroll in it. I have no idea what kind of student it is. I might have an undeclared student. Well, the good news is that on your roster, it'll list what degree program they're in. And I would highly encourage you, if you have anyone who's an undeclared student, just take a minute to ask them about their goals. Are they thinking about transfer? Are they thinking about a career? Are they working in a field now? All right, so backing up to Fran, then taking a look at her big picture, she stops to analyze how her course fits into that larger program. So here on the screen, you can see that Fran has already looked at her program outcomes. These are the things that the students will master upon graduation. And she's going to take a look at how her course helps lead students to where they need to be at graduation. In her course, some things will be practiced and other things will be assessed. Okay, and you can do the same. You should be doing the same for your course. How does your course fit within that big picture? Whew, all of that is only step 1. Step 2 is for Fran to examine her course outline. So pull up your course outline and take a look at your course competencies. You want to spend some time reflecting on how your course competencies align with program outcomes for the students, and also the information given for each course competency, and how is that related to what you're actually doing in your class experience, whether it be in a classroom or online. Okay, did you notice that was step 2 and this is step 2 as well? As you're doing that, then take a look at defining your learning resources. Lots of times it's a textbook, but sometimes it's not. We have classes that don't use any textbook at all. We're really lucky. There's a ton of online material that we can use as learning resources for our students, and some of us as faculty have developed our own learning resources as well. So it can be a textbook, but it can also be a lot more. And it's at this stage of the game that you want to define what those learning resources will be to help students achieve mastery of their course competencies. All right, so let's spend a little bit of time talking about those course competencies that will be assessed. Not only do you identify which ones will be assessed, right? Some of them might not be. Some of them might just be practice. If you teach like an introductory level and then the student moves on to an advanced level, they may only practice the skills in your class, and in the next level, that's where they get assessed. So sometimes they're only practiced. In other cases, you'll have competencies that have to be assessed. And once you've identified what is to be assessed, you have to ask yourself, how will I assess it? Will it be a test? Will it be an essay? In this case, Fran has identified that the students are going to role play, and she's going to assess their competency as they role play. And when you're deciding what will be assessed, how you're going to assess it, you have to take a look at how will you know when it's good enough, right? How do you know when a student has done good enough for a C, a B, an A? Those are our criteria. You should be able to find them on your outline of instruction. All right, before we assess a student, in every instance, before we assess a student, the student will have completed learning activities, right? We don't just give them a chapter test. They read the chapter first, and then we give them the assessment, the chapter test. And that's true for any of your competencies. Before you assess them, the student will complete learning activities. And this is I really like this part of the course because I get to decide, what are those learning activities? Are we going to go on a tour? Are we going to have a guest speaker? Are they going to watch a video? Are they going to research online? What are all those learning activities that I want the students to do before they are assessed? Here are Fran's, so finally we're at step 3, right? Did you notice that? Okay, so here are Fran's planned assessment. And this is information that the students are given the first day of class so that they understand when an assessment happens and what that assessment is going to look like. No pop quizzes in this case. Students are going to know ahead of time, because there are cases where a student will complete the learning activities that we've offered them and they need to do more, right? For whatever reason, they're struggling with the topic. So they need to know their planned assessments for the course. All right, each competency for the course that needed to be assessed was assessed during Fran's course, and now she's ready for step 4, creating those engaging learning activities. So previously we talked about identifying learning activities. We want to make sure that those learning activities are engaging for the student. Sometimes a learning activity for an instructor is just read the chapter, right? But is that the best way for a student to be engaged with the material, remember the material for assessment, and remember it upon graduation, right? Can they retain it over time? So as you're planning your course, take time to create engaging learning activities. And we have some great examples here by Fran on the screen, all right? So next up, let's take a look at Fran's list of her assessment activities. And notice the verb here. Students are demonstrating their competency. Oh yeah, that's right. Remember, all of this means that our students are doing performance-based learning. They're going to prove their competency, their mastery of a skill or knowledge based on a performance. That way we can see their competency in action. It's not that they're just taking a lucky guess on a multiple choice question, right? In this case, Fran's students are demonstrating their skills and knowledge. Whew, all that work, and now Fran's finally ready to teach the class. As faculty, we know this, right? We know that Developing a course, preparing for a course takes months and months of work. It's what we do over the summer, right? There are instances where we're given a course very late and we can't do all of the proper preparation that we need to. What happens in those cases? Typically, there's misalignment. There's misalignment between what we expect of our students and what the students actually perform. There's misalignment between what the student expects in the course and what they experience in the course. Not being able to dedicate the proper prep time to a course or the proper course development means that there can be pitfalls, including this misalignment, and then students don't learn. What happens when students don't learn? Lots of times as faculty, we say, well, they didn't study hard enough. If only they would have studied harder, they would have gotten an A. Or we think to ourselves, oh gosh, I must not be if only I was more entertaining, they would have learned the material, right? Well, it's not anybody's fault. It's when we don't have the proper amount of time dedicated to developing that course, to preparing for that course ahead of time, that the students don't learn and that misalignment happens. Here's what we'd like you to, so sometimes even with months of preparation, our students still don't learn. Here's what we want you to ask yourself when you've experienced a class where the students didn't learn like you thought they would. You need to examine, well, which competencies didn't they learn? How did I teach towards those competencies? What assignments or learning activities or assessment activities did the students complete? Which ones didn't they complete? What assessment tools, right? The how of the assessment. What tools were used? Maybe it wasn't the right tool. Maybe I gave them role play and I should have given them an exam or something. I don't know. Right? And then how can I change it? If my students didn't learn, if they didn't achieve what I thought they were going to achieve, then let's make some changes. Let's figure out where the misalignment happened and how can we change it to better align the expectations and the outcomes for the students. All right, here we are. This slide says in your packet, but we're not face-to-face. So take a look in your Blackboard site and find the teaching analysis sheet. You're going to fill this out. You can be honest about your evaluation, no judgment. Fill this out, submit it to Blackboard, and